Governors in 6 states, West Virginia, Mississippi, Ohio, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Louisiana, they have all agreed to deploy state National Guard troops to join the 800 D.C. troops that have already been activated by President Trump. And the video shows Guard troops now helping law enforcement at 10 different metro stations in D.C. President Trump claims crime was out of control in the nation's capital, though local officials are calling the troop buildup politically motivated. They are pointing to statistics that show violent crime in D.C. is at a 30-year low.
If you're in one of these blue cities, you need to right now get prepared for the occupation that's coming to your city.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. This episode hardly needs an intro from me. I'm talking with Army vet turned Nazi hunter Kris Goldsmith about why Donald Trump is calling on Republican governors to deploy their National Guards to D.C. This isn't about addressing crime or keeping the peace. It's the opposite. This is about provoking a conflict in a blue city using troops that Trump assumes will be loyal to him. And mark Kris's words, this will not stop with D.C. Now, I still have faith in our military members to abide their oaths to the Constitution, but we are in incredibly dangerous territory with a commander-in-chief who is out for blood. I'll let Kris and my conversation speak for itself, and apologies for the background. I'm on the road this week, but we'll be back in my usual studio soon. Here's me and Kris. Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. I've got Kris Goldsmith back, the founder of Vets Fighting Fascism, which holds accountable extremists across the country, many of whom are in our own government now. Kris, you had a incredibly viral TikTok trying to explain the setup. I mean, that's what Donald Trump is doing with these deployments to Washington, D.C. You opened that video by saying he wants blood in the streets. Can you explain the threat and why he is using the National Guard to instigate what we fear is coming?
Yeah, Donald Trump is acting as if he wrote the authoritarian playbook. And I think that when people hear me say that, they have like two conflicting ideas, is that he's not smart enough to do that and he doesn't like read, right? And that he's not a strategist. He's not a planner. And I think both of those are true. What historians and political scientists who study authoritarians say about authoritarians is that they have authoritarian impulses. In order to be an authoritarian, you have to be a certain kind of person. These authoritarian impulses are not trained. They are natural. Whether it's a cult leader or the leader of fascist Italy or Nazi Germany, all of these leaders have innate things about them that make them who they are. And Donald Trump, while he may not be planning out a month or 2 months or a year ahead, I never believe that he can think that far ahead. He is following the authoritarian playbook. He is doing things that we can predict. And months ago, and I think on your show, I've talked about how it's very likely that Donald Trump will start taking National Guard from what he views as loyalist states and bringing them into so-called blue cities. We've already reached that point. Within days of mobilizing the DC National Guard, which he has the authority to do, he started calling on friendly governors to send red state guardsmen there. And the reason that he wants to do this is because he knows that those National Guardsmen are statistically more likely to be politically aligned with him. DC National Guard are policing their neighbors, their own neighborhoods, right? They are interacting with their friends and their families. They feel a sense of belonging. They probably feel a sense of guilt for occupying their own city. And they feel a responsibility to those people, to that neighborhood, to their communities. They also know that if they fuck around, they've got their neighbors to deal with after they take the uniform off and go home at the end of this deployment. The West Virginia National Guard and the Guard from Ohio and other so-called red states, Donald Trump has it in their mind that they are going to be more likely to pull the trigger in, like a Kent State type incident or a Kyle Rittenhouse type incident. And when something like that kicks off, Donald Trump will have all of the excuse that he needs to deploy red state National Guard nationally into so-called blue cities. This is what we should expect. This is almost certainly going to happen.
I want to talk about how that is likely to play out, but I want to double click on your observation, which I think is so smart, about the authoritarian impulse. Look, we've had Tim Snyder on the show. We've had Ruth Ben-Ghiat. And even they, as authoritatively as they write about these issues, don't really expound upon the instinctive nature of the authoritarian. And it's one thing you have to give Trump credit for. You're right. He's not a strategist, but it's in his DNA. It's in his bones. He has just a lizard brain talent for doing exactly the thing that is going to advance the authoritarian agenda. Every time he figures out the issue that is going to provoke in just the right way to give him yet another excuse. And I want to talk about that excuse that he is trying to instigate. They're talking about giving untrained guardsmen now weapons before they're ready. As you pointed out, he is only drawing guardsmen from red states with maybe one or two exceptions. And he started with D.C. because he had the authority to do that quickly. But this is setting up that blood in the streets scenario. It's terrifying to acknowledge, but that is a critical step on his path towards a military takeover. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, Donald Trump has just recently said that he would have the power to suspend elections if the nation were at war.
Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Data brokers make a profit off your data. Your data is a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. As someone with an active online presence, privacy is really important to me, especially in this current political climate. I try to brush off most of the online threats I get, but it just doesn't make sense to take unnecessary risks, like having my personal data just floating out there. But thankfully, Delete Me can help remove it from those sites and keep your info from falling into the wrong hands. So take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me, now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/Ken and use promo code Ken at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/Ken and enter code Ken at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/Ken, code Ken. Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break to say thank you to everyone who's been following and supporting this show and this channel. None of it happens without you. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my Substack page, I'd really appreciate the follow. It's a great way to make sure you never miss an episode. It's free to sign up. And if you're able to pitch in a few bucks, every dollar goes back into the show. Just search for The Ken Harbaugh Show on Substack or click the link below. Thanks.
He looks at Ukraine. This is in their constitution, right? He has called Zelensky a dictator because he has suspended elections because that's what the Ukrainian constitution calls for, right? But Donald Trump
Zelensky didn't suspend elections. The constitution held off elections. And besides, the idea of massing people in Ukraine, a place I've been to often while it's under constant missile bombardment. Look, England during the Blitz did not have elections, and we didn't call Churchill a dictator. So let's just dispense with that ridiculous notion. It's different in this country. If Trump wants to call off an election, it's not for the safety of the American citizens.
Exactly. And what Donald Trump is doing is he is forcing us into this conversation of explaining constitutions, right? Because what he is going to say is all the liberals, all the Democrats, they love Zelensky They believe that Ukraine is has the right to defend itself, and Zelensky has the right to be in power. So why can't that apply here? The logic doesn't need to make sense, and it doesn't need to be founded in facts, but that doesn't matter to MAGA, right? All they need is the rhetorical quip that gets you put into the explaining that we do on this podcast, because that doesn't work on television when you have, whether it's Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, where you have the bad actor who just comes in and just spills bullshit into everybody's ears, and people who don't pay attention and only get the clips are just going to go with what sounds easiest, what sounds, most logical to them in the 20-second soundbite. So, one of the things that you mentioned Snyder and Ruth Ben-Ghiat, previous guests on your show. Their books are on Veterans Fighting Fascism's anti-fascist book club list. And everything that I know about authoritarians comes from those historians. And I think that anyone who goes through the anti-fascist book club and reads those books will get a sense of what the authoritarian impulse is. I as a threat analyst, a lot of people make the assumption when they hear that I investigate neo-Nazis online that I'm some sort of like tech head or hacker. I am not. I just read a lot. And when you read all of these things, you start to notice that certain people have certain patterns, and you can start to predict what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, in what order they're going to do it. Not because they're studying history too, and they're trying to repeat history, although the fascists and neo-Nazis that I study do that too. But figures like Donald Trump, who don't have an ounce of attention in his brain to plan anything, you recognize that they are just going to follow the same pattern that authoritarians before them have. So that is why I think that, your previous guests, these authors, are so critical to listen to, because the warnings of the past are really instructive on how we can respond. Now, the point of the anti-fascist book club is not just to learn, not just to get people to learn how to, how anti-fascists of the past have organized to beat Hitler and to beat Mussolini and the rest of these authoritarians who never last forever. It is to inform what we can do today. And it is to get people to get together in the same place, preferably physically, if not, online. If you're a blue dot in a sea of red, I get it. You can't go to your local library and start a club. But if you're anywhere else, if you're in one of these blue cities, you need to right now get prepared for the occupation that's coming to your city. And the way that you do that is you start getting physically in touch with your neighbors, who are your friends, your neighbors, your family, people that you meet in your Facebook groups about your town, right? Go to the Veterans Fighting Fascism's website. We have instructions on how to do your first 6 meetings. And after that, you've got our book list, you've got your instructions. You don't need me anymore. You start your own anti-fascist cell, so that when the fascists come and have militarized your streets, you've got a group that are like-minded, similarly informed, and motivated to combat fascism in your backyard, because that's where you, if you're watching this video, you can be most effective in fighting fascism in your neighborhood.
That was part 1 of my conversation with Kris Goldsmith. In part 2, out next week, we discuss the role that ICE is playing in all this, as it is rapidly transformed into Trump's personal internal police force. See you soon.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.